rather than allocation. And I would say, like, and to add to that, to how much on tokenization versus coordination or collaboration and innovation, really, it's like if you think of how many, so much like time and billions of dollars of investment go into these kind of solutions versus regenerative solutions, and that's beginning to shift now, which is super cool. That, like, you know, and I know there's other studios out there, but just to use Allo Capital as an example of a studio that's spun out of Gitcoin and is now really experimenting with different apps, different like Allo Yeta, which is just sending out easy way to send out tokens at scale, and you know, there's different types of funding mechanisms, different things that, and there's not just that, but they're creating an ecosystem where any developer can come along and create something that builds on the Allo protocol application. Just as an example, so I think it's creating that culture of wanting to engage, like, in our communities, and allocating resources towards creating those solutions, and then experimenting, having fun, and yeah, it might not be what we think is going to be the solution, you know.
Appreciate those comments. I feel like I have a couple of points here. First of all, it's just an appreciation for pointing out the fact that regular people don't care about Web3. They genuinely do not. And if anything, they might start to drown you out. When part of this work, when you're trying to bridge this divide, right, between very geeky, nerdy, hacky, technology-oriented community and all of its capabilities, would relate those to, like, a 60-year-old lady who runs a flower shop. All right, she does not care about Web3, much less about your shitcoin. Okay, so please do not go in there expecting these people to do that. I also want to own for everybody, like, I fell into the trap. I fell into this trap, and that's why I'm trying to give you guys a head. Primary brand was ETH, money made for Main Street. But it was not about the currency. People don't care about currency. They want what they want. They want goods and services. They want a better. So our mission is to help them get to that hashtag real value and help them save some money in the process, right? Or maybe provide them a new way to earn some purchasing power, right? That wasn't on the menu before. So if we can provide new ways to earn our purchasing power by doing regenerative things, and we can provide a marketplace where when they spend that stuff, it kicks off more virtuous cycles of regeneration by working with regenerative businesses and whatnot. I think that's the way, right? And the way to do that is to provide them an invitation into, you know, reconnection and community co-creation, right? And kind of taking responsibility for the authorship of their own futures, right? Second point on what you're building. So Adina here has a fantastic product that basically gives you this Superman view of Earth over a given bioregion, and it'll show you where there's sensors all around that bioregion generating real, juicy, real-time data for the climate, right? And around biodiversity and all kinds of very useful indicators. I would see that, you know, being, yeah, let's get snaps shouted afterwards. I feel like that is, you know, that's a robust information system. So I feel like where that gets situated here is as a part of a community operating system so that they can heal the damage that's been done, right? And, you know, making another million gardens.
Do one more question. Mechanisms, what they're, whatever you want to call it, life, right? You see what's happening with meme coins and all that, but we've got, if we're talking about consumption and bringing local communities together for production and consumption, what mechanisms are you building to make sure that someone can't co-opt this, right? And what mechanisms are you building to make sure mom and pop shops and people who are actually doing the production in the communities are able to maintain the ownership and all those kind of things that are connected to.
Okay, there is no way that I can possibly answer that in 30 seconds. But I would love to talk to you about it. So just let's chat afterwards. And I'll use this opportunity to say, look, Green Pill Network, if you haven't heard of it, check it out. There's a Green Pill podcast. There's lots of podcast episodes. The network arose from that. It's a Discord community, great people trying to do great work. Regen Coordination. It'll connect you with Refi DAOs, Salo Public Goods, bunch of cool resources and Green Pill. I want to say that, and I want to say there's a Green Pill barbecue. It's a free event. Everyone here is welcome. It's on Friday, 12 till 4. Just look up Green Pill BBQ, ETH Denver. Google that. You'll find it. There's be amazing people there, such as all of the audience members here. And just it's a place to talk about this stuff and go deep in that. And final Green Pill plug is that we have a free Green Pill PO app. If I get the Green Pill PO app, just type in the secret word Green Pill Denver. It's green-pill.
Oh yeah. Make sure you come back tomorrow for more good read. Right? Tomorrow
and the following day as well. Same time, same place.
Cool. Well, it just so happens because last part of last year we ran a research project on this theme. The MycoFi research project came out of Gitcoin Ground 21. We got about $10,000 to do some work on the bioregional level, and then on like the municipal level, which is where I focus. And so, based on the frame being, what are the systems and mechanisms that we can activate on the basis of our own resources without being dependent on external inputs? We pulled together a list of currently 70 different mechanisms, and I'll be happy to get you this sheet. In the meantime, I'm going to speed run through some highlights just to give people some actual, but let's see, citizen participation tools, augmented bonding curves, community commons-based peer production, community development trusts, community exchange systems, community land trusts. Let's get out of the C's because there's so many cooperatives and communities. Cooperative purchasing networks, Creative Commons licensing, DAOs, decentralized insurance, ecosystem mapping frameworks, federated cooperatives, liquid democracy, mesh networks, mutual aid networks, participatory like Allo IRL, proof of attendance protocol, quadratic funding, reputation systems, retroactive public goods funding systems, especially we like that one, social impact bonds, and municipal micro bonds, because that's a fun one to talk about.
These guys, come talk to them afterwards. Some of the nicest and kindest and smartest people I've ever met. So discussion begins now. Yeah, give it up for the panel. Give it up for yourselves. Thanks for all being here.
Give it up for all the Regents in the crowd, baby.
Yeah. Thanks for the smart questions. Next up, we got some of your Regens, favorite Regens, some OG Regens in the space. We've got Austin Wade Smith, Paul Weidler, and Sam Bennett from Regen Network and Regen Foundation. They're going to be talking about some tools and strategies which make Cosmo-local coordination possible. I'll let them do their own introductions, but give it up.
Hold tight while we get the screen set up.
In my opinion, I don't know what quadratic funding is, but I love it. I love the word quadratic. I think quadratic funding, like donation, with match behind it. So it represents and people donate $1 to a project. One person donates $10 to a project. So you have a matching pool.
Okay, cool.
People donate to the project.
My friend here was
allocated
down in Texas doing some land restoration work. I was interested in those types of models.
So I do
But I
so
was
much
just
stuff.
thinking about like a lot of the
So
land
that's
that
like
one of the head of organizing project. He's got family and
Absolutely.
he's got the and they just sit back and like collect a check and be like, oh, thank you. Like, what are the novel funding mechanisms that could be developed to pay them to sustain the land instead of extracting competition?
Thanks. You too. You too. Thanks for doing that with us.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's all depends.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand a lot of the different reasons and I've done a lot of work with
I wonder if it's easier just to pull the cable out of that one and go over here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's essentially what I was thinking with what you do. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. Creating those novel funding mechanisms with more dials on what an artist and an entrepreneur. Essentially how I've been thinking about it. Right? You know, it's like ecological, culture, and social values for your life's needs, then how they balance themselves out. Yeah.
Hey, all, everyone hold tight. We'll be back in just a moment. We're just taking a second for a little technical setup. Make sure we can get the best presentation for you possible. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, and the next presentation is going to be super sick, so you should definitely stay around.
Yeah, check out
A lot of great wisdom and knowledge all the way around. Good context set.
Yeah, what's the best way? Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's what I'm saying. And I've also got a nonprofit art platform.
Yeah, I'm on the TV for sure for Guy.
Yeah.
Hopefully, so they'll make this follow.
Yeah, figuring out how to build the stories and the narrative. In my mind, it's like, how do we, I feel like crowdsourcing is like this huge, like, untapped resource. And once we get people. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'll send you my info. I'm also not coming on the code as well. I'm going to thank for the power code. EHR. I did not give it to myself. Yeah, where you located out of? Okay. Cool. Yeah. I'm in the Boulder area. My wedding.
Me too. I haven't seen any park.
What's a lot of the business. It's Chris Bill. It's been like kind of the spiritual reality for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're glad after our chats.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even see it. What did you say?
Huh?
Do you guys want to kick it off? Okay, should we spin up like a trying to find remote battery. We'll get it all sorted.
I mean, it's technically open mic stage. If anyone wants to take the floor and share some wisdom or good vibes or throw up a hyperstition.
Do you want to make an invitation?
Sure, yeah.
Throw up a hyperstition. That's good.
Hey y'all, we still waiting on a battery for a remote for the TV. Want to open up the mic to any of the regens out there who want to share any hyperstitions or good vibes, or anyone who just knows a joke. Feel free to come up and tell us how you feel.
Yeah, the ultimate joke is that we're destroying the world for money, and as everybody here is doing, we just make it up out of whatever. And then it could literally be anything. It could be a goat, it could be a dog, it could be, you know, ether. So yeah, I was told to come up to kill time. What? No, I don't feel uncomfortable. No, I just want to talk about how, you know, it's funny that we have words like localism. It really just shows how distorted we are. I feel like we're really out of touch with reality, and regen isn't a woke thing. It's kind of like a remineralizing. It's like bringing us back to reality and creating real value. Economy, which the foundation of the American economy right now is financialization, is bullshit. It's a endless hype cycle of speculation, and many people here are creating speculative assets of derivatives of derivatives of derivatives of derivatives. And so this small little stage right here in this click, this meme, and to create a bridge from the virtual into the real world, into soil, into food, into communities, and to do what the Bitcoin revolution has not and cannot do, because it's still recreating the image of the God Emperor money, rather than actually genuinely innovating a new economic system and new tools and mechanisms and relationships. And it's funny that when energy, they're getting called woke for it, or they're getting called communist, or whatever it is, when that was the whole point, to revolutionize how we do things. And so this is an exciting space, but I mean, I feel like we're in a really strange, accelerated dystopian reality, where many people's way out is through into continually virtualizing and abstractifying the world instead of coming back into what really matters. And so the silliness that we have to create words. This is working through the language, through the words, and kind of creating better memes, better cultural memes that bring us together around all this techno jargon and all these mechanisms. I think that if the purpose is to continually extract value out of a system rather than to regenerate, than to give more than you are taking, then it's going to continually be a doctor who doesn't know what cancer is, who has a cancer patient who's like, I don't know, you're eating well, you had your apple today, but you're dying. I don't know why. So it's like, unless we diagnose the actual problem, which is the extractiveness of the system and the abstraction of real world value that's been turned into just worth less chopped down. They're not just worth less as a living tree than they are chopped down and turned into a toothpick. They are actually a liability on the balance sheet. So we have a profound value system disorder. And the question is for all of you, you know, which side are you on? You know, are you accelerating that? This out of a nerdy little echo chamber and bring it into the real world so that we can explain it to the people that we love, because it's creating value for them. So, I mean, there's a lot that I could say about creating a grand meta narrative of story is ultimately the ultimate currency, that we're all sort of stuck in a belief then has value because other people use it. The network effect means people use it because people use it. And so we believe in a story we call money. We believe in this story of progress and growth and extraction, all these things, these nation states, all these absurdities, because other people believe in them. And when we choose to believe and put our efforts and our values and our energies into something real and a new story, a better story, it will become real. And so that takes a leap of faith. That takes courage to fly out here, to come to this space and actually take on money, the biggest, most powerful, destructive, powerful, you know, and we're trying to reshape it back into something better. So I could keep, you know, yapping until the cows come home, but Yeah, everybody won. That's what like most of the economic system is. We're like trying to lower the quality and cost of the earth rather than increasing the earth. What do you say? I know it's an auction house, and many people here are they're like trying to lower the cost of servers so they can melt the glaciers faster to generate more dog shit generative AI and more rapidly turn the world into money instead of turning it into, you know, an endless upward spiral of increasing real world value of like water systems that feed perpetual post scarcity abundance. That's what we're here for, right? Right? Creating abundance and realizing we already have abundance if we work together. Anyway, somebody else come up here and yeah.
Somebody else come up here and yeah. I'm just changing the live stream here. Yeah. That's closer, right? Ooh, that looks good. We could watch some YouTube. I would love, because we're all here, and one of the intentions was actually to make sure that we had a little bit of space to do workshopy things, to do conversational things. I'm going to just, anybody who's wanting to tune into this next section on regenerative data, frameworks, asset registry, find a thinking partner right now. Find a thinking partner. Everybody make a little group. Find some folks to talk to. And to prepare for this session, I want you into your space.
Track or measure change in your environment? How do you keep tabs on how things are improving or how things are degrading?
Life, keeping track of regeneration or degradation. What are you keeping track of? Is it the messiness of your room, or the health of your soil, or the clutteredness of your docks? Your desktop, my desktop, that's how I do it. Just have a think about how what are you paying attention to? How are you monitoring it? What does that look like? Have a little conversation. Computer and says you want to share and it reformats, but it doesn't seem to be making it. Let's try that one again. Try that dongle again.
Bring my other dongle. Oh, yeah?
All right. So, any reflections? What are people tracking? What is the impact? What is the entropy or regeneration that people are tracking in their lives out there? Or did you talk about other things? Tadpoles, nice. Yeah. We do. So my kids and I, every spring we go and we put these little burlap sacks in our stream so that we can do a survey of the aquatic species of insects that are in there, which is a proxy of how healthy the the stream is. It's super fun. It's really interesting. Any other little things that people are paying attention to? So this presentation is going to be about impact accounting, right? Being able to, in which we track the multifaceted complexity of life, right? It isn't as straightforward as you might think. Demo knows all about it, right? How do we, and what are you guys measuring? How fast they're growing, everything, species. So what we've been working on with many folks in the community is kind of creating a framework, computer and human readable framework, maybe not too dissimilar from the EBF, the Ecological Benefit Framework, which we contributed really heavily to, but very practical. Like, how do we ground that and make it accessible for reporting? And so hopefully at some point, I'm just kind of like giving you the preamble to the preamble here, because Austin and Sam are really hoping to actually show you guys some slides to help guide the conversation. Go ahead, Benjamin. Yeah. Well, so thank you. Great prompt. So one of the things that we've always thought is regeneration is a local phenomenon, fundamentally, and therefore you need to build tools so that people can create their own methods for measurement. So we really encourage people to verification. Participatory guarantee systems, right? And for those of you who don't know, they're sort of in the food world, in which there's a bureaucratic body, the ability to grant a certificate to someone for following their rules. The other is the way in which a community of people gets together and defines the set of rules and defines how it's going to be monitored and what's happening. So it's a participatory guarantee. It's been going on for a long time in the centralized bureaucratic approach to certification, because people are involved in actually setting the rules in the first place. And for those of you who are nodding fervently, you probably are nodding because you're seeing the pattern here, which is this is a type of commons. This is sort of the wisdom in which we get together and we define the set of rules, how to monitor them, and what the, and so from our Regen network, what we're really trying to do is build a set of toolkits that allows people to right relationship between a community of people and a place, right? So that's what an eco-credit is. An eco-credit is the symbol of right relationship between a community of people and a place. For some people, that symbol happens to be carbon credits, right? Because those people are making commitments around the carbon cycle and their sort of regenerative engagement with the global carbon cycle in a local place in order to earn money for whatever they're doing. But for other people, it's very different. So an example of different is we've been working with, oh, wow, that's perfect up here in order for that to happen.
It needed kin.
It was the magic, it was lonely.
Yeah.
So, so I'm incredibly excited. Sam and Austin are going to take you all on a little bit of a tour of a much deeper layer of what it looks like to be approaching all of this semantically in order to create that open impact accounting framework out of attestation graph network and all of the work that we've been doing at Regen Network for many years. You're going to see now, and thanks for letting me ramble a little bit while they fix the tech stuff.
Yeah, we sincerely appreciate y'all's patience. That was a little brutal, but we got through it, and now we're on the other side of that. Yeah, so I'm Austin Wade Smith. Working in this space for a number of years. You could call it the climate finance space, the regenerative finance space. And rather than give a presentation on like notions around ecological assets or credits or certification standards, we wanted to like essentially point out what we think is like the real problem, the real problem. And so we're not really going to talk about digital currencies or like crypto money. We're going to talk about how distributed ledgers and linked data models can But yeah, so we're gonna not talk about what would typically be associated with like a crypto talk on digital currencies and things like that, but talk about the relationship of distributed public infrastructure, digital infrastructure with linked data to do distributed knowledge production. It's the biggest question. I think it's actually the big about what impact accounting looks like.
Yeah, and we spent we spent the last hour pulling those questions, and then if it makes sense, we'll answer it then. Otherwise, we might put it throughout the presentation.
Yeah, so this is informal. We're just going to have a go of it. Okay, so we'll start with just a hot take. Is that accounting is actually an interrelationships and dependencies. And so part of the way you could understand what we're going to talk about is like real accounting. How do you do real accounting?
And specifically, the thing that we came here to talk about today is impact accounting, which I think a lot of us are doing in various ways. Though we're not going to talk about credits, the underpinning of a credit, supply chain report, monitoring events, all of that is essentially impact accounting. And just to throw a definition up there, so impact accounting refers to the frameworks that systematically track, quantify, and value the full range of effects an organization, project, or activity has on environmental, social, and economic systems. And these can be positive or negative externalities. And so the real accounting is to create a more complete and accurate picture of value creation and destruction by integrating those externalities in decision-making processes. So I think relationship to a place, the activities they're engaging in, the data they're collecting, the results of those data, but it's also really important to track the other side, which we don't, talk about quite as much, but how are organizations tracking internally? What are their positive and negative effects? How are they tracking their carbon emissions? How are they tracking the social impact on both sides of the market? And I guess the last thing I would say on this is why impact accounting is really important is, a lot of us are trying to direct financial resources to projects on the ground. And for, organizations with capital to feel confident in directing that capital in a meaningful and grounded way, they have to have a good understanding of and what they want to put money into or other resources into to try to match that on their balance sheet. So I think that I was half paying attention, but I think when Gregory was up here, giving a little bit of an introduction, he did touch on a lot of the challenges of environment. And I think, we obviously started in the credit space, and a lot of people pointed to a lot of the challenges with carbon credit markets and other markets, and how that model of, environmental impact accounting for such a complex and important thing is pretty broken. So, it's really fragmented. We're still in this like proof of PDF era where people are producing 100-page reports that they're passing to a verifier, and then that person's reading it. And there's almost incentive not to evolve out of that model because there are so many organizations and institutions on this complex, bureaucratic, I'm gonna read through your PDFs and give you a stamp of approval system, instead of leveraging technology, instead of valuable information for scientific knowledge production, for understanding of regenerative practices, for organizations to understand what they did well in the last year or what they didn't do well and how to improve. And so we really want to get that into a machine readable format to make it more queryable, to apply things like AI and LLMs to better understand things. Yeah, and just to kind of put some graphics up there for I think what we've seen a million times is we're still very much in this institutional top-down model of impact accounting when really it's kind of this more distributed graph. And so over the last few years, Austin and I have been really excited in exploring different concepts of how to of the accounting system, how do you bring it to legal systems, how do you bring it to economic systems, and while all of that was happening, Regen built its data model in as the mechanism to start to build out relationships between all the activity happening on the network. And so we're over the last year or so with Paul and other folks in this ecosystem have been working on building a general purpose impact accounting data model. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Yeah, so the goals present the archaic model, which we kind of just went over. The second is introduce the basis of semantic, what semantic data is, why it's so important, how we're using it in environmental claims, outline the potential for semantic data in environmental impact accounting, a bit about just semantic data. I think that this, hopefully I'm going to do my best to distill these technical concepts into something that's pretty easy to understand. Again, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. Yeah, so semantic data is essentially information structured in a way that it helps convey meaning and relationships between entities rather than just their values. So right now, just a lot of normal data models, non-semantic data models, are really good at telling you where to find information and then what that information is. But what's missing is it doesn't tell you what that information means, and how it relates to other information. And descriptions of the relationships between those knowledge objects in a way that's machine readable, that's queryable, that's structured in a knowledge graph, an acyclic knowledge or a cyclic knowledge graph that we can use. And so, why this matters, it just powers more intelligent search and discovery. It does things like enable automated reasoning and inference. So for instance, if you were to say, turmeric is a spice and turmeric, or in this spice has anti-inflammatory properties, it could tell you that turmeric has anti-inflammatory properties. So it can pull relationships between different nodes to infer the knowledge graph itself. So we're essentially expanding our knowledge set. And then, we're at a really important moment with the evolution of AI. It's come so far in the last year, and in 6 months, it's going to be, doing things that we can't even imagine. And one thing that's really valuable about semantic data is these LLMs are as good as structured data formats that describe relationships between things, can help improve applications of AI. And then, the last thing is it just supports interoperability. So if you use standardized taxonomies or ontologies, data schemas in RDF, you can start to support interoperability between platforms. So we have made the decision to use RDF, or Resource Description Framework, as our mechanism our framework for semantic data. So RDF is a framework that represents structured information on the web. The two main things that you'll see in the name is resources. So resources are subjects, objects. It's anything concept. It could be, an idea. And these resources are all uniquely identifiable. So, you could have ISBN numbers to identify books. You could have resolvable links. So app.regen.network would resolve to our application. And then you could also use non-resolvable links. So this next one is just a URL I made up to say that this is me, Sam Bennett. And then it also allows you to use unique identifiers. It uses IRIs, International Resource Identifiers, as unique endpoints to identify. And then the other major part of this is descriptions. So it consists of the properties or descriptions of relationships between the different resources. So that's subject, predicate, object. It could be entity, attribute, value. In plain English, it's just subject, verb, object, which we've been using for thousands of years. So here's some examples. A subject in kind of more a technical format. You could have a link that's uniquely resolvable. This is Jane. Jane's birthday is the January 1st, 1990. But then just to bring it to the applications that we're doing, you could start to make descriptions about communities, and you can see through this example how that knowledge graph is starting to be created. So you could say the Siecopai community, which is a community in Ecuador, practices forest rotation for their chakras. Forest rotation supports, better palm population or a healthier palm population. And then, a healthy palm population supports improved biodiversity. So you can see how each node is relating to one other thing, but then you could also have a whole knowledge graph just branch off of forest rotation, the different sub-practices within that, the different people that are using it, so on and so forth. And so what that allows you to do is create these really cool knowledge graphs that, through things like OWL, you can visualize, that essentially just show how you can link together, many different pieces of information.
Maybe just a note on this, the idea around distributed infrastructure producing knowledge graphs is rather than a network of actors, each individually producing some bit of information, using structured linked data allows us to create this sort of collage of what is the state of a system at a given time, so that many different actors can contribute information to it. And what it's doing is it's building a larger model that's greater than the contribution of any given individual to begin to define large complex systems like environmental interactions, which are incredibly complex. So the potential of taking these knowledge graphs and leveraging them for impact accounting is incredibly underexplored, and that's one of the takeaways we want you all to fathom from today.
Cool. And I just jumped out of, let's see if this, yeah. So I just jumped out of the presentation really quick just to show you guys that we are using this today. So if you go to, the Regen app, maybe this will load, maybe not. Might not have good Wi-Fi. Yeah, so I'll just show the slide. So if you go to our app today, you'll pretty much everything that you see on our app is pulling from RDF graphs that we've created. So every project page you go to, everything that you see on the data stream, this is an example of one of the data streams we throw on projects where, different members of the community are uploading data about, environmental information they're collecting in the field, practices that they're engaging in, governance decisions, and all of that is essentially structured in RDF so that one directly from that knowledge graph. So behind the scenes, you can understand, who is involved in, that practice, what are some metadata tags around, those different practices that they were engaging in, where does the data live, what is that data? And a lot of the work that we've been doing is working to develop ontologies and taxonomies that essentially other communities can use. And what's cool about this is, today, if you guys wanted to upload data to a project page, if you followed, if you took one of the schemas and you followed that schema and posted it to our, private server, essentially it would render if you were using the right format, right? Because you're speaking the same that you're doing. And then, we're really focused on the front end interfaces that kind of extract that.
Cool. So this is this is a space of research and interest that we've been basically completely obsessed with. And I think we're trying to make sense around how to process this larger space of ideas with you all. So I'm going to present a kind of parallel expression of this idea that we've been developing at Regen called the claims engine, a notion of a claims engine. And I would love an open discussion and think around how this notion of impact accounting and claims engines interact. I mean, people are really good at making connections between things, and that's not something that's an opportunity of all of us gathering together to try to discover that. So as part of the initial prompt of saying that we didn't want to make a presentation just around CliFi or refi in its conventional form is because by and large, the vast majority of those conversations are kind of obsessed with this last step in the process that becomes highly political for good reason. And that what we're trying to speak to, that's really the source of integrity, is upstream. So I'm going to say that there's a million different ways to create a unit or a bounded bounded discrete entity that would be some kind of like impact, set of impacts. And so carbon credits are a version of that. You have impact certificates or impact NFTs. You could call them like a biocultural unit, a standard, or like an eco credit or like a fair trade. All of those are ways of bundling particular claims around how practices were upheld and done. By and large, I think one of the reasons people hate carbon credits so much is for good reason, is that the underlying impact accounting beneath them is incentivized to be corrupt and opaque. And so we're trying to situate that within the larger space of linked data as an alternative. So the big like revelation here is that all these different forms of how we could describe regenerative value or living value are in fact just aggregated forms of claims around human environmental interaction. And that the claim itself is a sort of like essential molecule, like a basic building block towards building larger claims or like larger assets or entities around environmental impacts. So eco credit certificates, impact certs, those are all just collections of different types of claims which are structured for like arguments around impact. And so in this sense, the anatomy of a claim is to say that we have some kind of evidence or data, and then that evidence or data is being validated or verified according to data economy, data sovereignty, data ownership. But I don't think we talk nearly often enough about who gets to say that this data is factual. Who says that data is valid? Because it's not just all data that's being used, it's the data that's factual and valid that gets used. And there's a whole industry around determining who gets to say what's a valid data. So that's kind of beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about, but the validation and verifications have in the data stream a number of different pieces of evidence that are uploaded, and then you have validating that data. They're signing it with their signature. But this just like go really quiet. Okay, yeah. So in the in like the read information in its form of intelligence, we're building commons that can outcompete this like open institutional form. Yeah. So just to like kind of close it out, we'll look at a few examples around how you might aggregate claims into different kinds of structures. And the basis of what Regen is developing is you could say, okay, if you want to work in the SDG impacting systems, those claims are going to follow certain schemas, which is like a structured way of organizing the claims in order to satisfy your overall unit. Then you might have a set of claims around impact that are ecological in nature, like a keystone species has been protected, a line of deforestation has not been trespassed. Each of those is a claim, but then again, those might be comprised of subclaims. It's a nestable model. And then by the nature of it being a biocultural unit, you could say there's a cultural set of claims. A school was built, a certain level of like knowledge traditions has been upheld or transmitted. And so inside of a given like entity, we have a sort of nested set of structure, how you want to bundle it into an entity later on. So on the far left, you have an eco credit. It has some ecological claims and impacts inside of that, some cultural dimensions. In the middle, there's this whole world of SDG impact funding, where in order to maintain a tax deductible status, or in order to claim that you're like upholding sustainability commitments, you're basically structuring your claims according to the SDG logic, less so like carbon sequestration from the crediting industry. Or you could have claims just be individual standalone things, like knowledge ecosystem is allowing us to create shared knowledge that's interoperable and like reinforce one another, and we're using our collective ability to validate that information. And what starts as just impact accounting is in fact like a distributed network of knowledge production that is not being gatekept through an institutional model. We have actual data schemas that are so to make a carbon credit. They can do that through a nested set of schemas. If they wanted to make a community composting certification, they could do that too. We should start discussing how we want to structure and build these schemas. In fact, what we're presenting is the notion of DeSci, kind of like at its root. And like, this is what DeSci, it's like the biggest question, actually. And it's to that here at ETH Denver or in these conferences, but it's like the really wicked and incredibly exciting thing. Ecosystems of claims with public infrastructure that can audit its through transparency how factual it is, then we're producing a kind of shared knowledge around our impact and the consequences of it. And oftentimes we emphasize like accounting has such a bad rep, in one, because we don't actually do accounting. We just like take some little sliver of the dimension and call that real accounting, and everything else is an externality. But maybe rather than just like punishing polluters, this way of thinking about accounting impact, we have to do this. And this form of accounting bolsters local regeneration efforts and catalyzes the transition. So we can think about impact accounting not just as like, you've done bad, you need to offset, but it's also, you have done so good, you should be recognized for it. There's like positive and negative forms of it. And doing that kind of calculus and that arithmetic is essential because, yeah, it's obviously a dire situation.
Cool, and I think that was our last slide, and we'll open it up for questions. But you know, I just want to highlight a lot of the conversations that we have right now around interoperability is how do we bridge assets between one another? You know, how do we work together? Essentially opting in, we can start to adopt and contribute information to a knowledge set that values all of us, right? You know, if I want to learn all of the things that are happening in the Celo ecosystem and understand what data, and could speak with, you know, our ecosystem and vice versa. So I think that, you know, this is something we're obviously really excited about. We're inviting in other people to contribute to this. You know, it's open source. We have a working group on it. So if you guys are interested in, you know, supporting development of ontologies, of the taxonomies, of kind of this like—
Sam, we got time for a few questions.
Anybody got questions?
Got Ben over here.
The fire. I've been thinking also a lot about semantic data. When I first was exposed to the RDF framework, I thought that it seemed somewhat reductive for some of the uses that I've imaged. So one, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on eco credit versus RDF for the claims? And then secondarily, looking at autonomous domain allocation as a way to start so that we remove bureaucracy entirely.
Cool. I can take a crack at the first question, and then maybe Austin, you can. Cool. Yeah. So, you know, I'd say in the world of, you know, like linked data and using Markdown, and you know, we were using kind of like these big like JSON files, and we kind of migrated to YAML to support, you know, better inheritance and just kind of code structure, because we're building a, you know, what was in this format fields here. So.
Yeah, I mean, and the second question I think is like, it gets right to the heart of the matter. If you build like the idea of making factual claims, or it's like a threshold of claims engine to do really lightweight like impact philanthropy, and the goal is that effectively like you encode a contract to say like this impact is worth this amount, and if there's a community that can provide their own validation through using some interesting like game incentives around truthfulness, then the contract automatically disperses.
Hi, thanks for the talk. Where does the data live?
Yeah, you have to talk about it.
Where does the data live?
That's a great question. So the way that we have structured our data model is it could live in a few different places. Files like this. So essentially we're extracting information from a PDF. You know, right now, so data graph endpoint, and that will go onto Regen Ledger. But then, you know, in the broader world of, you know, RDF and our data model, it's really important to think about what we're using this for is when do you extract information into this format that just lives natively in the graph, and when are you using this kind of data structure to provide metadata for what lives, you know, at a private endpoint that, you know, or a public or private endpoint that someone wants to own, right? So it doesn't make sense for us to be, you know, putting satellite images on chain, right? Or like storing them in this format. But there's a lot of really rich metadata that you could extract about satellite images. You could ink us wherever you want. And then essentially that's like a piece of the the audit trail where, someone's making a claim about using a model that uses a satellite image. You can pull information on that satellite image. You have a pointer to on chain. Is we store a few things. So this here, this last bullet, this is an IRI. So essentially, we're storing a timestamped hash, that IRI on chain, and then we also have the ability to set up resolvers that point to where that lives. So essentially, like from an where blockchain is really look like at a certain point in time. If I could get my hands on that data set and recreate this IRI, is it going to match, yes or no, right? So that's one way to incentive to signal trust is, are we using the same data sets? And then people can actually layer attestations onto anchoring events. So we don't do on-chain data, the IRIs, and allow you to set up resolvers.
I've been doing a lot of research in something called the Common Impact Data Standard. I wonder if you guys have heard of that, but it's a framework that's been studied on organizations, and they've also developed a kind of ontology-linked data structure. So one, I think it could be interesting to explore how that connects to the system that you've already thinking about it.
So that's a good question. So I would consider those 5 atomic primitives possible, and about this notion of claims. That then, okay, we could call a claim being an outcome or a claim being an activity. And so you could structure it into these, like the 5 that I think the Common Impact Framework has. We're definitely familiar with it, and sort of one's adjacent. An environmental application, an insurance application, you could build like, a set of 5 essential units that are all themselves claims that are best suited for the particular purpose that you're trying to achieve. But interestingly, it's like of the linked data world is like related to like biochemistry and like cell biology, because it's sort of like, it's clear to say like this gene segment correlates with the expression of this protein. That's like a more causal relationship. As soon as you get into the world want to make humanly possible, that then could be structured into ontologies or schemas that are fit to purpose. But there could be, like, if we were to be too
a lot with EBF, we've been working with them since the start in just developing that taxonomy. We adopted and implemented a lot of that in our app, and so we use a lot of that ontology in our ecosystem. Just in the world of like RDF, like Austin was saying, I think that what we're really trying to do is focus initially on kind of the skeleton, these impact things. You could plug that in, and I think that where a lot of the work is like, how do we structure that in a way?
Can I just do one concluding comment, because this feels relevant? Like, just to wax poetic about metadata for a second, and just the idea of the semantic web, like that is not a new idea. That was we're effectively just coming back and advocating for structures of the semantic web again. Shift our logic from just being about things to about the way things relate to one another. We can begin to build much more. It's like our data model is based off a relationship, not off of little things. And that metadata already has that beauty built into it, and RDF expresses that in a really elegant way. But like it does. So the data model is reflecting the complexity of the living system, and I think that's really elegant.
Picture.
Though we also got to figure out how we query the data and interact with the data. So next up, we've got Sean Anderson and Darren Zoll to tell us about Gaia AI and how we can use AI to better interact with the data that we're collecting. So give it up for Darren and Sean.
Let's give it up one more time for Regen Network, Regen Foundation, the Regen Commons, linked data, the semantic web.
Yeah, I do want to say I saw Sam present the semantic web 2 years ago at the ReFi Summit in Seattle, and it's really inspired my thinking since then. So thank you, Sam, and nice to see the evolution on there. And on that note, so Gaia AI is meant to be a keystone project, which is catalyzing regeneration around the space. About markdown files, I think of Gaia AI as a bridge
between structured and unstructured data. So what we saw in this last presentation, the web, we want to complement that by scrapes, any sort of regenerative podcasts. We like to say regenerative literature or media, starting with podcasts, because they're very available and ubiquitous. So we have taken the Refi podcast, Ma Earth, Green Pill, Bankless, The Great Simplification, and hear anything you enjoy on any of these everything. And what we're seeing with AI agents is the potential for synthesis across different types of memory and different types of knowledge. So Gaia can access knowledge across various podcast episodes and then iterate on that through conversations with people across social media. Gaia is available on Twitter and Discord. So anywhere you go and have a conversation with Gaia, there's a synthesis happening with everyone else in the world interacting with Gaia as well. So in addition to this, like I said, unstructured data coming from all these podcasts, Gaia has access to environmental and earth sciences APIs. So we've just started working on this recently, but so far we've got air quality and water quality data sets that Gaia can access, and we'll do a little demo on that a little bit later. We like to think of the Gaia AI project as having 3 pillars. First of all, being a meme coin for the Regenaissance. We believe in something which is self-manifesting prophecy of regeneration. And Gaia is out there on the front lines representing the movement. Gaia as an agent is also going to be acting as a board member on various impact investment funds. This is early stages, but we are in the works of developing this with, we have about 2 organizations that we're working with now to get Gaia as a board member on NGO Liza OS with that. And yeah, that's Gaia. So that's the Gaia platform. We are developing custom agentic software. For example, we built a plugin for Gaia to manage multi-sig wallets. So Gaia can spin up a safe for collaboration to manage common pool resources with other agents or with people. Some use cases for Gaia is sort of, she's out there on the front lines consuming environmental data and having conversations with people around the world. So we have hopes that she can discover environmental trends before others. Like I said, she's acting as an impact investment board member, empowering public and citizen scientists, a leader in the regenerative movement, and a voice for the earth. This is our vision for Gaia. So Gaia is a kind of a Web3 project, started in December of last year with the idea of launching a meme coin. Now we haven't created any tokens, we've just created this agentic software, but already we have funded we've made impact investments. So we did an NFT sale round and raised about $5,000. And with that, we've been going to Gaia and getting her advice on how we can allocate that funding to have maximum impact. And interestingly, what Gaia brought to us, which we never would have thought of because we're a team of Canadians, but Gaia wanted us to allocate funds to a nonprofit organization in Uganda called IOECA. And this led to the planting of over 500 fruit trees in Uganda. Also, Gaia has recommended twice now beach cleanups in Tulum, Mexico. And this has resulted in the removal of hundreds of kilos of trash and protected the endangered sea turtles that are found on the beach there. And you can see in the picture, just one of our cleanups, you can see how much trash was collected off this beach. So we're really excited to have this. We call it the Gaia IRL, Gaia in real life movement. And this is just getting started. We want to keep scaling this as we move forward. And I'll pass over to Darren. Oh no, roadmap's my part. Okay, so where are we at so far? We want to consolidate a lot of the features we've been building out with Gaia into a web platform. That should be rolling out within the next month or so. Domain expert. We are working, this is a project that came out of GFEL this past weekend. We met a handful of people who have a shared vision of the Regen map. And we want to collaborate with that team to create the Gaia Regen map. We're also working on a customized impact methodology through Gaia, initializing an impact investment fund. And we're building out a feature into Gaia, which is deep research. You might have seen this come out through OpenAI. They have a deep research function and a few of these other agentic platforms where you can assign an agent a research topic, and it goes off for some amount of time. It might be 5 minutes or 3 minutes or a few days, and does this kind of continuous iterative research and brings back results. So we're building a custom deep research function into Gaia, and we have this idea of assigning Gaia the task, how can we completely remove plastic from the ocean? It's pretty ambitious, but we do believe in a planetary scale superintelligence. So we want to set the bar pretty high on what we can do with this. So that's a bit of our roadmap. And I'll pass over to Darren to talk about some of our partners that we have so far.
Shout out to the Regen Commons. Shout out to ReFi DAO, Monty, Grassroots Economics, Open Civics, ReFi Tulum. So yeah, we're part of this Commons, we're part of this Regeneration Federation, this decentralized network of emerging organizations all working together for planetary health. We're building open source technology, and we just want to invite everyone to come and collaborate with us. We're looking for community members, citizen scientists. We're looking for data, especially environmental data, partnerships, software developers. And demo, we're going to do a live demo on Twitter of our Gaia agent. But yeah, I was really inspired by the last talk on semantic linked data, and hopefully we have some time to come back to that. And I threw up this image here of this here, and it has data on the bottom and then wisdom at the top. And obviously, what we need is wisdom to match the power that we have with technology. We need the wisdom to wield it. So that's the question, is like, how do we get to that? And this is just this one idea of, that maybe there's some kind of process to get there from just data and information and knowledge. We're connecting it together in a semantic and linked way, emphasizing the relationships between data points and between data sets, so that we're looking at things systemically, and then that way we can use AI to just do really powerful things like modeling, simulation, causal inferencing. So yeah, we're really excited about that. We're huge fans of structured data, and like Sean said, we're starting with unstructured data and LLMs, but LLMs are the perfect complement to structured data, because they're two sides of data, structured and unstructured. So LLMs help to put those together, and so yeah, we're really looking forward to working with structured data, working with the Regen network. So yeah, let's actually go to Twitter, and we'll take a. Oh yeah, I remember our flow now. So Darren's gonna ask Gaia about the air quality in Denver, Colorado. This is one API that we have access to, is air quality around the world. So we're going to check in with Gaia and see how the air quality is doing here. It'll take a minute or so to get back to us. So in the meantime, we're going to announce an open invitation that we have to the community, to everyone here at ETH Denver. It's the year of the regenerates, and we want to know what that is. Is that just greenwashing, or is it something deeper? What are we all doing here together? What is regeneration? What does it mean? What does regeneration look like? What's the antithesis to regeneration? And what does that look like? So we have a tweet up on Gaia, which is an open invitation. So like this, quote tweet it with your vision of what regeneration means for all of us here while we're at ETH Denver and what you'd like to see come out of that. It's a bit of a competition. There will be a winner. We're going to pass this over to Gaia, who is going to take a look at all the proposals, all the submissions, and out of them pick an answer that Gaia believes to be the most regenerative. So definitely take a look at that. Follow us on Twitter. It's Gaia AI Agent. And please submit what you've got for the Year of the Regenerates. And then checking back in with Gaia on the air quality. So the current air quality in Denver, the level presents a risk for health for an exposure time superior to several days. So what is that for? Is that days, Darren? 44 days? Oh, okay, I think that's in hours. So what we're finding here when we reach out to Gaia and we observe the reality of the data is there are risks to our health in everyday life. Gaia suggests not being here more in Denver for 44 hours, or there might be some risks to your health. So this is what I mean when I say I see this as an interface. This is a one-stop shop, the sort of chat interface or a Twitter account that you can access, and you can start to ask questions about the environment and come face to face with the reality. Structured data, this is what we mean as the intersection. We think LLMs offer the perfect interface to getting structured data into the hands of people. And we like to bring that into everything we do with Gaia AI. We want to make environmental data very visible, accessible, observable, but also it's a reflection from spending time here, getting to know everyone, seeing everyone. Last night we spent 6 hours around the fire at the Allo Capital launch, and we really got to see each other. And I think that's probably going to be a highlight for me. That's definitely a highlight for me on this trip, is getting to see people here at the level of the heart, having that real connection. And we try to bring that through what we're doing at Gaia AI, is coming from a heart-centered place and bridging that into this world of, and yeah, we want to say thank you, everyone.
John.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant, if we want to push this live demo to its limits.
Do you want to ask it? Yeah, sure.
I think that's a really good question. I think one of the first steps is to take stock and to map out, like, what is the situation, like how much energy is it using, and is that sustainable? And yeah, and the other thing to note is that there are other types of AI, other than just large language models, and some of them are much more efficient. Yeah, but it is a real issue, and it's something that we should all be asking with AI, just with all of our technology use. And it gets to the root of a lot of the problems that we face, where it comes back to get us with because it creates real problems, and everything's connected. So yeah, I think one of the first steps is to just figure out, like, how much energy are we using, how much water are we using. And another important aspect is like thresholds. So there's like limits and thresholds, within which we can be safe. So it's like we're creating like a safe operating space. And they're like there's planetary boundaries. There's these boundaries and thresholds at a planetary level, but then also at smaller local bioregional levels as well. So we need to take that into consideration. And something like water is very kind of contextual within like local geographies. So when we're talking about like, dealing with water, like you have to take the context of the local place into account. So that's also really important.